Thank you for listening to this St. Louis on the Air podcast brought to you by Lindenwood University's Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise, examining market approaches to help solve economic and social issues, hammond.institute.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I am Don Marsh. The days at the Repertory Theater are dwindling down to a precious few for longtime artistic director Steve Woolf. He's stepping down at the end of the current season, ending more than 30 years in this post with a flourish as director of the current hit production of Oslo. It runs through March 3rd. Stephen Woolf joins me in studio. Great to see you again, Steve.
Great to see you, Don. Thanks for having me in.
You're ending all of this, these 32 years or so, with a flourish with Oslo.
It's a great play and a wonderful production of this play.
Yeah, and you're directing it. It's your 47th directorial
something like
assignment?
that. Yeah, right.
Why did you decide that you wanted to go out as a director?
Because it's my life. I mean, I'm a director. I'm a producer. I fell in love with the show when I saw it in New York. I think the story is incredible because it's a true story, and it comes off like, like an international spy story in a way of secret meetings and things going on, and led to the 1993 Oslo Peace Accords.
In the Middle East.
Yes, yeah. And quite moving, very funny, and quite dramatic. You don't have to know anything about geopolitics.
Yeah, when you hear that it's referred to as hilarious, that's not something you often think of with regard to Middle East.
Well, no, you don't. But it's the diplomats had to have time away from the negotiating table. And so they set up an area where they can, tell stories, tell jokes, and actually those are the times you always get a lot more done than actually at the table. Yeah. It's high drama. There's no question about it. But it's a compelling story. And I know the playwright is working on the screenplay now. It feels like a film.
Well, it's a great way to go out, as it were, and it's certainly being reviewed very, very positively. But let's talk about the obvious. This is the end of a long road for you, Steve. What kinds of things are you thinking about now as you plan the next chapter?
I haven't planned the next chapter, Don. I'm trying to figure it out. I had to get through getting Oslo up and finish producing the rest of this season. And we'll see where it leads. It's been, well over 30 years, and every day, you're in the office at 9 o'clock, and, in our world, that can easily go to 11 or 12 at night. So the idea of not having someplace to go at 9 o'clock is both exciting and terrifying.
But you're going to continue a role as artistic director emeritus, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And what will that involve?
Well, I'm answering the phone when someone calls and says, "How does this work?" And giving whatever advice or counsel I can give to the new administration.
Your successor is in place, or just about to be in place, I take it.
Yeah, Hannah Sharif. She's a sharp lady. She's finishing up in Baltimore Center Stage, and she'll be in place effectively June 1. Mm-hmm. She's been in and out of town the past few months.
When you decide on what your season is going to look like, well, let me start there. How do you decide what next season is going to look like? Because next season is already planned
and Hannah planned that season.
Yes, I understand.
It's totally hers. You assemble titles, you start reading, you start looking, what's available, what can you get rights to, what's interesting, because there's also a personal connection to the plays you do, the plays you pick. You kind of fall in love with the plays and see how it will scan, for us from September to April. And, you can't do 6 tragedies and you can't do 6 comedies. And it's how it mixes. And our audiences are really smart and like both comedy and musical and challenges. And so you find the literature that you think is going to make sense. And we try to stay, for me, I tried to stay current with what was going on in New York and around the country and around the world.
You talk about the need to get rights and that sort of thing. Yeah. How difficult is that? I mean, if there's a Tennessee Williams play out there, can't you just say we're going to do this and pay whatever royalties are necessary?
Basically, you call the publishing house and they will say, unless it's going to Broadway with stars or a big national tour, and then we get cut out of it. The play that goes wrong, the show that is closing our season, I happen to know it's one of those where you knew some people. I knew some people involved with the show, and we're the only theater like ours that's doing it. There's a national tour going out. We're the only self-producing production in the country, as far as I know. And that was about knowing the right people, and the timing was right.
Yeah. Once you have selected the play, what then? What is the process? I mean, step one to
step two. Once we've got rights to do the play, then it's sort of happening simultaneously. I'm thinking about a particular play. I'm thinking about a particular director. And once we've got the director in place, then you're talking about who the director wants to design the show. And you've got director, designer, and then you start talking about casting, which for us, unlike other art forms, opera, dance, symphony, they're putting together way out, years out. Theater's more mobile. So we're casting 5 or 6 months out prior to start of rehearsal, pretty much.
You draw a lot on St. Louis talent.
There's a lot of St. Louis talent here. There's several St. Louis actors in Oslo, and then we primarily cast out of New York.
And what is that process like? Through agencies or what?
Yes, we have a casting director, casting office in New York we go through, and they set up the auditions with us, the director, and then they're making the calls out to the agents and assembling people for us to see.
What's been the most difficult production that you've had to do there? One that you wanted to do and fought really hard to get in there, but it was hard to put on the stage. I mean, Oslo is really hard to put on the stage because there's lots of video, there's lots of projections. It's technically very complicated. There's a longitudinal screen on the stage. All the way, the story of Lyndon Johnson, which was also our first use of video. The Humans, which I directed last year, I still think is the hardest play I've done on the main stage. And it's hard to explain why. It's overlapping conversation, overlapping dialogue, lots of emotion, and getting it all straight, just getting the characters in the right place in the right frame. It was really hard. It paid off really well. It was a really wonderful production, but that was tough. It was just tough. There's an awful lot of work that goes into these things that have a very limited run. Let's face it, they don't run for months and months and months.
Yeah, we disappear into the air. That's sort of the wonderful and complicated thing about the theater is we're there and then we're not. You can't rewind us. You can't visualize us again. You need to be there in the room. It happens in the room, live in front of you. I mean, when you see Oslo, think there's a film that's going to be made of this play, not our production. The playwright's working on a screenplay now, but it's happening live in front of you, and so the importance of that and the energy that brings into the theater space is remarkable and special.
How has St. Louis changed as a theater town during your time here? You, of course, were with the Rep before becoming artistic director.
Yes, so
you've been around for a while.
I've been around forever. Well, there's a lot more of us. That's what's sort of remarkable. I mean, years ago, there were 2 or 3 theater organizations. There are easily 15 or 20 in town now. I mean, the thought of people deciding they want to form a theater company and produce is remarkable because it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy, and you've got to raise money and do all the things to make theater work. But people are stepping up to that challenge, and so in various neighborhoods and communities around town, there's something every night.
Why is that? Why do you think St. Louis has done this over the years?
I honestly don't know. Yeah. These people wanted to do it and didn't think they were crazy and are taking the plunge. And you go, wow, that's impressive that you wanted to do this. And why? Because you feel because there's something in you that makes you want to do it because it's not easy.
When you look back, Steve, and I'm sure you've had this question a million times. I think I might have even asked it the last time that we got together. But I think folks are interested after a long career like this. When you look back, what do you see? What stands out? There must be moments that are just far and above in the memory than others.
Sure. I've produced 300 plays in my time here. It's a lot. I don't want to think about that. But there's sometimes something really remarkable, like when we did Sunday in the Park with George, and at the very beginning of the show, we had a white set. It's part of the words of the play, and this cloth came down. It became the park and rolled down over the white, and I still think it's magical, and it's those kinds of transformational moments that are actually really simple and have great art and great promise, and the music underneath that it's unforgettable. It's like the opening of Follies, which we worked on for 3 years, planning that, and seeing the women coming down this big staircase. Those are remarkable times.
Well, how about the times when the women trip when they're coming down the
staircase?
staircase? When things go wrong.
Things go wrong. It's live. Something will happen, but you'll see that in the play that goes wrong, our closing show. Because if everything goes wrong in that play, it's Suppose the Noise is Off, which is about the characters. This is about the play. How much of the set stays up, what goes on, how the props don't make it. It's very funny. Things happen. It's live.
Well, that is what makes it kind of fun, too. I think when the crisis is over and you look back and you can maybe laugh at it.
Say, so what did we do when the lighter didn't light, the match didn't go, the gun didn't go off? What happens? And you have to be sharp on your feet to do it.
I remember reading a story some years ago about two actors, and I can't think of who they were, but they were well known, and they were great pranksters. And they used to play little jokes. They'd run on Broadway for months at a time, and so they'd get bored and they'd play pranks on each other. And at one occasion, they were in a living room setting, and the phone rang. It wasn't supposed to ring, and so one actor walked over, picked up the phone. And the other actor wondered what the heck was going on. He says, "Oh, it's for you."
It's for you.
Are you familiar with that story?
I'm familiar with that story. And in fact, years ago, I was stage managing a production at the Repertory Theater in Abingdon, Virginia. And the sound person made a mistake and rang the phone. And the leading lady actually came and answered it. And it's a great moment. And she mentioned the guy's name, said, "Oh, he doesn't work here anymore."
Oh, really?
And he was done.
Really?
But it was because she had nowhere to go with the phone call.
I wouldn't ask you to mention any names, but I'm sure that you've come up with a list of maybe eccentricities or whatever on the part of some actors that have worked with you and for you, that things that they've asked to have the red jelly beans in their dressing room, stuff like that.
No, the eccentricities are nothing quite that extreme. I mean, when we did A Voice of the Prairie years ago, and Joe Neal Joplin was starring in it, and he was a storyteller, and the character was a storyteller, and as a storyteller, he had to drink before he went on, and for his opening moment, he said, what if I had a little shot? And so he gargled with some liquor of some sort, and it just added to his performance. And if you were near him, you thought he's been drinking, which he didn't do very much of. But it's one of the few times you give permission for something like that to happen.
Have there been many occasions where actors have forgotten their lines?
Oh, yes. Yes. And either you can enjoy the moment of watching them just flail, or the invention of the words is actually, both in Shakespeare and in regular plays. You look at somebody inventing a whole story to get themselves out of trouble. A couple times we've had people go up. That's the term. Go up totally. The opening night we did the play just went out of my head, where the opening guy totally lost his lines. I mean, and nobody could save him. There was no other character to come on to say, well, what about this? He had to get his way out of it. That was terrible.
How did he do it?
He just, I think we finally sent somebody on and just moved to the next scene.
Oh, really?
It's all we could do because he could not. He was totally stuck.
And of course, the audience picks up on that.
Of course
Yeah,
they do. They know, because all of a sudden, if it's not working, if the rhythm's off, you can figure it out. If sometimes there are little line blips, you won't know unless you really know the script. Something really big, yeah, you can see it.
I can't imagine, Steve, after all the years that you've been doing this, that you're going to be able to just stop. Really, I mean, everyone looks forward to retirement, but in a world like the one you've lived in for the last many years, it's a little bit different. It's fast moving, it's active. I think you'd miss it terribly.
Oh, I will miss it terribly. I mean, I hope somebody says, "Why don't you come do some work for me?" I will miss it terribly. It's been really important. I'm living the dream. I mean, how many people get to live your dream? It's what I dreamed of doing since I was in high school, and all through undergraduate and graduate school, and to be able to work in a theater, in a major theater in a major city, doing what I set out to do, and I can't yet. As of June 1, I'm not there anymore, and I hope somebody calls and asks some questions.
Well, what is this, the 50th year of the
53rd.
53rd year
This
of
is
the
the
Rep?
53rd.
It's really come a long way since it started. hasn't it?
Yeah, from the very beginning, when faculty members at Webster College then were the performers, and they realized they needed to perform more than they needed to teach, and so that evolved into the company that was eventually disbanded in the late 70s, early 80s, and the literature we do is more complicated, the technical work we do is more complicated, and the storytelling more complex, and that will continue to happen and grow. And there's a world of literature, new writers writing all the time. In our Ignite series coming in April, we're reading 3 plays from new contemporary writers, and we'll see what happens with them.
Time is winding down, but tell me about the Steve Woolf Endowment.
Well, I only know a little about it because they hide it from me of what we're doing, but we're raising money that will go. The endowment is to support the studio theater, our small theater and downstairs. It seats about 130 people. And this will be a way to help continue to support the work we do in the studio. The studio is very important to me.
It's going to be named the Steve Woolf Endowment,
right?
Which is kind of nice.
Which is lovely. And the development office is taking contributions every minute of every day.
All righty, well, we'll put a link on our website.
Well, please do.
So
I'll be happy to hear from somebody.
People can get at it that way. One final thought: April 10th is a big day for you. I mean,
yes.
Can you explain what that is?
No, that's my official retirement party, and they've kept it a secret from me. I have absolutely no idea. It took months for them to tell me the date.
Really?
I said, could you just tell me the date because my brother would like to come? But so there's secret meetings going on all the time. I don't know, except it's April 10th, and invitations are going out in the next couple of weeks. And I don't know what the program's going to be.
Are you going to be glad when all of this part of it is over? That is, things like that?
Well, a little.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah.
My work is trying to be relatively invisible, though as leader of the company, I'm quite visible. I will miss it all.
Well, we're going to miss you, Steve. You've been such a fixture in the theater world here in St. Louis for so long. You're going to be missed.
Thank you, Don.
I hope you find a way to keep your finger in it one way or another.
Me too.
Steve Woolf, he is the director of Oslo, the retiring artistic director of the Rep in Webster Groves, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.